Hello lovely people and welcome back to my channel. My McGrath Holiday 2020 collection has finally started to come in, and the very first and only product so far that I have received is the highlighter. So that is the new ultra mega special Skin Fetish, what is it called again? The Skin Fetish Sublime highlighter in the shade Champagne Gold. A few introductory words. I'm sure that you've already heard all there is to hear about the basic information about this highlighter, so I'm not going to waste your time too much with that. The highlighter comes in this packaging. The packaging fits very well into the whole Celestial Divinity collection. I personally don't find it to be particularly luxurious, especially compared to other items that she has released in like more luxurious packaging, the ones that have like the flaps and the strings around them. This whole collection doesn't really seem to have that. Personally, I don't see myself really keeping this box because it is not as luxurious as other items from her have been in the past, but I did want to keep the box because I thought the ingredient list is interesting to check. Just wanted to name that the first two ingredients are synthetic fluorphlogopite and mica. Synthetic fluorphlogopite is synthetic mica, so it is a very it's relatively an expensive formulation because synthetic mica is a relatively expensive ingredient. Now in terms of the packaging, it is absolutely stunning, it's gorgeous, it is this highly reflective gold packaging with McGrath's logo on it. It is so heavy that it can definitely get you on the short list of suspects on a murder case. And what I really like about it is that personally to me it feels like it is a little bit inspired by vintage makeup, because this is something I would imagine set on the vanity of someone in like the 20s or the 30s. It has like this screw cap, you open it. It doesn't have a mirror, which surprises me a little bit because they could have fit a mirror in here, and especially for that price, but maybe it's part of the vintage makeup vibe, I don't know. The highlighter itself has a very beautiful pattern embossing on it. It is stunning to look at, and it's definitely something that's going to live permanently on my vanity. The highlighter, by the way, what I found very interesting, is made in Taiwan, which is not something I've ever encountered in any of McGrath's other products. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with the highlighter, it's just something that I found interesting. I've never seen any of Pet's products being made in Taiwan. The next part of this video is going to be a demo of the highlighter as well as comparison swatches. I also did apply a couple of other highlighters on my face just to compare. I am wearing only the McGrath highlighter as of now, but you will see me also applying other highlighters on my face just to compare. If you're interested in that, please keep watching. Let us all say a prayer and hope that the lighting is okay, because demoing a highlighter and depicting it in an accurate way via film, for me personally, is always kind of a struggle bus. It's really difficult to get your lighting to be right as to showcase a highlighter accurately. But, so without further ado, let's just put the new McGrath Labs Skin Fetish Sublime Skin Highlighter in the shade Champagne Gold. As you guys saw in my intro, this is how the highlighter looks like. It has a very beautiful pattern on it, and frankly it doesn't look like a champagne gold, it looks more like a pink champagne. So I'm actually very curious how this is going to apply. I'm going to apply only on one side of my face, and then I want to swatch against a bunch of other highlighters that I have in my collection, and then put one of my other highlighters on this side of my face just to compare. I'm going to take my fan highlighter brush. This is my favorite highlighter brush from Brush by Maxineshka. I'm going to take just a tiny bit. I'm actually going to try to apply it relatively sheerly at first and see whether I can build it up, and I'm very curious. So this is the highlighter with just one subtle layer, and with that one subtle layer, to me personally this looks like a very neutral champagne kind of color with the tiniest hints of pink to it. I'm going to grab my brush and apply a tiny bit more and see whether I can build it up. It's definitely, I think, a formula that you can apply a bit more toned down, or you can build it up. So this is a bit more. When you build it up, you just basically build up the intensity. It becomes a little bit shinier, and I do have the feeling that it becomes more pink the more you layer it. So if you wanted to have those subtle, more neutral champagne tones, you will have to apply it a bit more sheerly, because at least on my skin tone, when I build it up, the pink starts to shine through a little bit more. It's not very intensely pink, let me point that out, but I do see a little bit more pink on my skin now that I applied a slightly bit more of it. I do also think that for someone with my skin tone, if I apply more, the more I apply, it will get darker on my skin and it will have less of that lifting effect. So for someone who is like even a lighter skin tone than me, I think you are either going to have to go very, very subtly with this, or you might find it just altogether too dark. Now, before I apply highlighter on the other side of my face, I just want to swatch this in comparison to other similar shades that I have in my collection, and I want to swatch on the other side of my face a similar color just to see the finish and the shine and the undertones, and just to see whether this is really all that special or is it really not that special. So first things first, I'm going to dip my finger into this. This feels like more like a baked gelée formula and not like a classic powder highlighter. Let me point that out. I feel like it is almost a little bit creamy when you touch it. So here you have the Pat McGrath Champagne Gold highlighter, and as you can see, when I swatch it on my skin, it applies quite dark. This is of course a very heavy swatch, and as I said, also with what I noticed on my face, the more I apply this highlighter, the pinker it gets. So the next highlighter that I want to swatch this up against is actually a very old highlighter that I've had for many years. I don't even think this is available anymore. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Illuminator in the shade Riviera. And as you can see, Riviera also has that sort of like baked gelée formula to it, and also seems to be a pink champagne, which is what I would describe the Pat McGrath highlighter as. I would call this more of a pink champagne rather than a gold champagne. So let's watch the Illuminator from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This feels more like a powder actually compared to this. This feels much more like dense and much more like a cream compared to this just upon the touch. I don't know whether you felt how much more like almost dry it felt when I swatched it. In terms of tones, they're actually pretty similar to each other. So this is the Riviera from ABH, this is the Pat McGrath highlighter. This is just slightly cooler in tone. Next I want to compare the Pat McGrath highlighter to Blissful from Ofra. I just have a mini Blissful from Ofra. I think definitely leans a bit more bronze, but when I touch it, it has that similarly dense formula to it. And it is also it's a very intense highlighter formula. So here you have Blissful. And very interestingly, when I swatch it on my arm, you can once again see those like slight pinkish tones that it has. So I would say these three are not extremely different from each other, and the Blissful shade from Ofra just leans a little bit more bronze compared to the one from Pat McGrath, but it is quite similar. Next up I have this palette from NARS. It is a highlighter palette that was a limited edition holiday release 2 years ago, but I do believe a lot of these highlighter shades are actually just present in the NARS regular lineup, and I want to swatch this one over here, which I believe is the shade Queen. This again feels much more like a classic powder highlighter, but these highlighters, I know from experience because I wear them from time to time, are extremely smooth on the skin. Yeah, these are all in the same veins. This is maybe just slightly a warmer pink shade compared to this, but it is also a very similar shade. These are pretty much the closest dupes that I could find in my collection. Now I want to swatch up against shades that I would consider more of like a classic golden champagne. First up we have here the shade Sin from Urban Decay, which is once again a classic powder formula of highlighter, and this is what applies on my skin tone as a champagne gold. You can see how much lighter in tone it is, and it definitely lifts my cheekbones a little bit more than all of these other shades. I can apply all of these other shades to look lifting on my cheekbones, but they definitely don't look as highlighty as the shade Sin from Urban Decay. So this is how a classic champagne gold looks on someone with my skin tone. And the last highlighter I wanted to show you is also the one that I consider the perfect golden champagne shade on me, also in terms of a formula, and this is the shade Ozone from the Nabla Skin Glazing line. This is one of my favorite formulas, one of my favorite highlighters ever. It does feel a little bit like that baked gelée, but it has a little bit more, it has a lighter texture compared to the Pat McGrath one. The Pat McGrath one is definitely much denser in texture. And here you have Ozone, which to me is really the perfect like champagne gold with the slightest pink hints to it. And now just as a last comparison, and not really a comparison, but I just wanted to show you the original highlighter trio that she released with those like baked shades. I don't think this shade is going to be any similar to the shade that she released now, but I just wanted to show you how different the formulas are. So the formula on this is much more lightweight. It has a lot of those like almost like grayish white base to it because it has a duochrome going on, and it feels much more like a very light powder compared to the new formula. I'm just going to swatch it right here. I actually really like the formula on the trio highlighter from the Skin Fetish line. So here you have the pink shade from that highlighter trio, and you can definitely tell how different these formulas are. This just has a much more lightweight formula compared to this. This feels much more like a dense, almost like a cream baked gelée type of formula to me. So from all of these dupe shades, I have the feeling that the shade Bliss from Ofra, in terms of texture and also in terms of color, reminds me the most of the shade from Pat McGrath. So I'm going to apply this on my cheekbone so that we can compare. But what I also want to do after that is I'm going to wipe that off, and I'm going to apply Ozone from Nabla just so we can see the difference in terms of like the lifting effect on my cheekbones and on my skin tone. Blissful from Ofra, and I'm probably going to need a mirror for that. So on this side you have Pat McGrath, and on this side you have the Ofra highlighter. If you ask me, the Ofra highlighter in terms of its tones is still very similar to the one from Pat. It's just slightly more bronzy, and it is also much more blingy upon first application. Like this formula immediately makes your skin very reflective and like glass and almost wet looking. This also gives you a little bit of that effect, but I think it's more subtle. Now I'm going to gently wipe away the highlighter from Ofra, and I'm going to apply Ozone from Nabla. So on this side you have Ozone from Nabla, and on this side you have the Pat McGrath one. I actually think when you apply it on the skin, the shade from Nabla doesn't look exceptionally different from the shade from Pat, but the shade from Pat is a little bit deeper and pulls a little bit more pink. But can you also see, because of my skin tone, that this highlighter looks much more lifting on my cheekbones compared to the Pat one. The Pat one is still lifting, but I think this shade is a bit more lifting and a bit more flattering as a highlighter on my skin tone. That's not to say I don't wear deeper highlighters because I just want to vary the shades that I use, but just saying, if you have a very light skin tone, this might be a little bit deep for you. I'm going to set my face now with Fix Plus, especially my blush highlighter bronzer, because that's something I always do. You can definitely tell it gives a bit more of like a shine and like a natural feel to the highlighter already, although I think the highlighter already looks pretty natural as it was. I think it does accentuate skin texture a tiny bit, but honestly I don't really know whether a formula exists that can remove your skin imperfections. It's a highlighter, it's meant to attract attention to the skin where you put it on, so I think very few highlighter formulas, especially like the more metallic ones, are going to be forgiving in terms of skin texture. Alright you guys, I'm going to keep my final thoughts on this highlighter relatively concise. It is a highlighter. Is it really going to rock your world? I don't think so. Personally, because it was marketed as like this very new and innovative formula, I wanted to try it, all the while knowing that it's just a fucking highlighter. What kind of a new formula can they possibly invent that we have not seen before? So in that respect, I think that if you know the type of formula that you're getting yourself into, and particularly the color, you should just be prepared for an extremely luxuriously packaged highlighter, but nothing special in terms of its formula. Can you not achieve this very same effect with a number of other highlighters? You totally can. The only thing that puzzles me about this highlighter is that it is marketed as something that can be used by pretty much any skin tone, and I am still curious whether that really is the case. So I am like a light-ish skin tone, not the lightest out there, and also not a medium skin tone, so I'm very curious whether people much paler than me can pull this off, and I'm also particularly curious whether people with a deep skin tone can use this. I have seen a couple of YouTubers who have a much deeper skin tone than I do demo this highlighter, and on some of them, when they applied it a bit more heavily, honestly it looked a little bit ashy. But that's just my personal opinion, and it could have been the lighting. So I would love to hear from you guys if you know YouTubers of different skin tones who have tried this formula. Do they really think that this is a universally flattering highlighter? Because this is the biggest mystery to me. How exactly is a highlighter going to be universally flattering on every skin tone? It is very beautiful, it is very smooth, it is very illuminating, but you need to be prepared that you're mostly paying for the experience, for the limited editionness of this product, for the gorgeous packaging, but you're not paying for a formula we have never seen before. So, with that I'm going to conclude my ramblings about this highlighter. I hope you enjoyed the video, the demo and the comparison swatches. Let me know what you think about the highlighter. Did you pick it up? What is your opinion about the formula? And do you really think that it's something more special that we have never seen before? Am I being too harsh? Or, you know, yeah, just share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!